What's up, planet Earth? Welcome to Books by Adrian. I'm stoned. Adrian. And today we're going to do something I should have done a long time ago, which is the Authortube Newbie Tag. Let's check it out. If this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. Just hit the button down below or the little image on the bottom left-hand corner there. If you enjoy the video, leave a like and a comment down below. Don't forget to visit my website, booksbyadrian.com, for the blog, as well as the newsletter, and links to all of my social media, as well as my YouTube and my podcast. Last video, I mentioned that the following day I would be publishing a podcast. Why isn't it up? Because as I was editing it, I accidentally deleted it, and then I couldn't get it back. Rookie mistake, right? Suffice it to say that I would have to re-record that entire podcast. Number one, it wouldn't feel very natural to do it all over again, although I was answering questions on that podcast, and I will be answering questions on this video. So let's just roll with this video replacing that podcast, and I'll do a new episode at the end of the month for the podcast that will be something completely different. Also, last week on the video I mentioned that I would be talking about a short story that I'm writing on this video. I am still writing that short story. I'm not done yet, but we are going to talk a little bit about it at the end of this video. Why haven't I done the Authortube Newbie Tag yet? I didn't know it existed. I didn't know this was a thing. The other day I was on YouTube going through the Authortube tag and ran into 5 newbie tags all in a row. And so, yeah, this is something that I should have done at the beginning. It's very interesting to, have 3 months of YouTube videos under my belt. It's kind of odd. I still feel like I'm figuring it out. So I felt that this topic for this video was very appropriate. Without further ado, let's get to the Authortube Newbie Tag. First question, how did you find out about Authortube? Well, I've always subscribed to YouTube channels that teach me things. Along with the ones that entertain me, I always subscribe to channels that actually inform me and teach me and make me better at the things that I do. For example, channels like Lessons from the Screenplay, which just teach you how to write, and it's awesome. Among those was Jenna Moresi for writing novels. Upon watching her videos for a couple of weeks, I was ready to dive into writing my novel. Not that I had learned everything that there was to learn, but rather the inspiration had hit, and the need to write and to get it done and to actually finish it and publish it and have it be a thing on the shelf in bookstores. This has always been a dream of mine. So to finally buckle down and work on it is monumental. Obviously, following authors on YouTube, I ran into the Authortube tag on pretty much every video. So that's how I learned about Authortube. Question number 2, what genres do you write in? Currently, the novel that I'm writing is a murder mystery plot set in a sci-fi fantasy world, a very futuristic, other world. And along with murder mystery, I feel like thriller and sometimes even horror, if you're doing, for example, a serial killer story, as I am, elements of these genres will also sort of seep in. All that to say that my novel is sort of a hodgepodge of genre. If you're talking about the backdrop of the novel, the world as it were, yeah, sci-fi/fantasy. If you're talking about the plot, murder mystery. If you're talking about elements that make up the plot and make it better, thriller, horror, romance. There'll be a romance subplot. And this being my first novel, I'm really reaching here, but I enjoy all of those genres, and most of the movies and even books that I read that I enjoy the most tend to sort of break genre conventions and sort of steal from every genre or multiple ones and combine them. Can you say that A Song of Ice and Fire is a fantasy series, or is it a medieval series, or is it an astrological series? It is all of these things. Is it a drama? Is it a thriller? Is it a horror? It is all of these things. The story that I was working on before I started this novel, again, also a a melting pot of genre. So all of the above, all of the above. Question 3, what is your preferred writing tense, point of view, and category of story? Category, definitely adult. There will be drug use in my novel, psychedelic experiences and the like. There will be sex in my novel. There will be, strong language. There will be violence and gore. Again, being a sort of marriage of all these different genres, and more importantly, following the adage that character is most important, and character is best when it is just human and realistic, and humans are complex and they're driven by so many different things. And if you are going to stand there and pretend that sex is not a big part of it, or it's something that you can skip over in one of those skip over sex scenes, I'm sorry, but I'm not watching your movie, I'm not reading your novel. It's just not real, man. It has to be real, especially if the rest of the novel is so fantastical. The characters have to ground it in real and raw emotion. So, category, adult. Writing tense and point of view. These two things are sort of combined in mine, and that is not to continue bringing up A Song of Ice and Fire, but it's a huge influence on me. George R.R. Martin as a writer is a huge influence on me, and I love what he does where it's past tense. There's a narrator, a third-person narrator, but each chapter follows a unique point of view, a singular point of view. So even though it is a narrator telling you what happened in the past tense, it is telling you what happened to this person. And in addition to the general happenings of the scene, you're also getting the character's thoughts. So it is very focused on that character. Take that to mean that if the character is too dim-witted to understand a particular complex, political plot point that just happened, it'll go over the characters' heads, and that challenges the reader to understand it because it's written through that character's point of view. If the character is too young to understand, if the character is looking in that direction and somebody's being murdered back there, that's not going to be part of the narrative because the character is looking that way. So again, it's not first person. Personally, I'm not a big fan of first person. Not that I won't read it. I have read plenty of first person narratives and enjoyed many of them, but it's not in any way one of my preferred points of view. When I read a story, I like to be told the story, I like to be told that this happened. Whenever it's written in the first person point of view, it's meant to put the reader directly in the brain of the character and live the events as if it's happening to them. And that's just not how I can't make the disconnect often, where I doesn't mean I, it means I, and I can't deal with it. So I like the third person point of view in this one, it being a very human and very personal story, and it coming from a lot of things that have happened to me in my life, or aspects of my personality that I'm infusing into characters and so on. With all that, I like the third person limited narration point of view, and again, that's past tense. Past tense is actually something that I actually, not that I struggle with it, but that I often will just mess up as I'm writing. I'm writing in past tense, and then halfway down the sheet I'm writing in present tense, and it doesn't make any sense, and then I have to rewrite the whole thing. It's really annoying. Past tense, third person limited, adult. Question 4, are you a plotter or a pantser? I'm glad this question is on here. It's one that I answered on that podcast that will now never see the light of day. I don't like the question plotter or pantser. First of all, pantser sounds ridiculous. Second of all, it's not an accurate separation of what the two things are to me. And so I'm realizing more and more how big of an influence George R.R. Martin is. But Mr. Martin said in an interview that he prefers architect or gardener. So rather than plotter or pantser, architect or gardener. Meaning that, in both cases you're writing a novel. So the architect will plan out everything. He has detailed schematics, you know what I mean? Like, he knows everything that's going to happen. He knows exactly what his characters are going to do, and all he has to do is write it, because he has prepared all of it. The gardener, in comparison to an architect, a gardener knows that the seed he's planting is a tomato seed. He knows that what's going to grow from it is a tomato, but depending on how he feeds that seed and the sprout that comes from it, depending on how much water he gives it, how much sunlight he gives it, how much nutrients, that will affect the end product. In other words, I know what I'm writing, but as I'm writing it, things will change and make it unique. You know, by the time the harvest is out, every tomato is unique among themselves. You know, like every single tomato is going to be just slightly different in however way that is. So architect or gardener, I would say I'm a gardener. I definitely know where I'm going. I have an outline. Jenna Moresi, I have an outline. But as I'm writing the characters, I allow for wiggle room, and that will usually lead to sort of domino effects and butterfly effects that will make me have to adjust the outline later on. But gardener all the way. Are you self-published, published, or yet to be published? I am yet to be published. This is my debut novel, but when I do publish, it will be self-published. The next question had two different parts, one if I was published and one if I wasn't. I've already answered that I'm not, so let's go with the second part. What is your dream publishing house or literary agent? None. I want to self-publish. I have researched this for a long time, and I have found that you know, even if you do land the big publishing house that's gonna really, you know, bring out the ka-ching, at the end of the day, you're still responsible for your own marketing, unless you're a huge name, which makes no sense to me, because the huge names don't need help marketing. The little guys starting out need help marketing. For some reason, publishers do not market for the little guy. They market for the big dogs. If I'm going to be on my own anyway, then I'm going to really be on my own. I'm not going to give anybody any sort of opportunity to tell me what to put in my book, what to take out, or anything like that. Obviously, I have critique partners, I have beta readers, I'll have a professional editor when the time comes, and I will make appropriate changes accordingly. But I'm not going to have some dude tell me that, you know, I have to take out the drug angle because it's not easy to market. What does he care? I'm the one doing the marketing anyway. So as I said in a previous video, by self-publishing, I'm taking responsibility and ownership over my product, and making it so that if it fails, it fails because of me, and if it succeeds because of me, because I put the work in. So here I am putting the work in, right? What Authortube related videos can we expect to see on your channel? Well, I'd be lying if I said that I had nailed down the formula for this channel, but my intention is that this is a documentary of sorts. I'm starting to film myself while I'm writing and things like that, things that I don't normally think of doing, especially since a lot of the time I'm writing in the dark, so it's just not ideal for recording. But I am starting to do more of that and to record my everyday life, so that I can, in the end, edit this more into a sort of documentary style film if I desire to do so. The point being that I'm not necessarily a how-to channel, more documenting my progress. And as I document my progress and more of my project becomes complete and ready for mass consumption, hopefully you who are along for the ride with me will get excited for this novel. When did you start writing? I suppose I've always been writing. I haven't always written stories, but you know, in school, English was my best subject. I could churn out a banger of an essay overnight, and I was good at it. I could write. And then I started writing music for a time in high school. I started getting into bands, playing bands, and so I wrote a lot of songs. And that's not necessarily my forte. It's not, you know, where my talent shines the best, but it provided me with a lot of really good experience, so that much later on in life, when I realized that I was a storyteller, I could apply those things to my writing. There's a rhythm to it that I'm trying to put in there, you know. I also write to music. I listen to music while I write, so it definitely influenced my writing, and that's, I think, where it really started, was when I started writing music. What was the first story you ever wrote? I don't know. I don't really remember the first story I ever wrote. I know that I wrote some stories in high school, again for an English class, but I don't remember specifically what they were. The first major story that I really worked on was Dusk, a graphic novel series that I started with my buddies that is still to be completed. We had a writer's room and we plotted out the entire series. I haven't written the scripts yet. Well, I wrote scripts, they were just garbage. But anyway, we had the writer's room and together we wrote this story. And so I think that is my most formidable attempt at writing. This new one, I mean, just in completing the prologue for my novel, I feel like I've written a story, because the prologue is sort of self-contained, so it's almost a short story. It's the longest chapter in the book by far right now, and I have to rewrite it in a new way to try and get the word count down. But at the end of the day, it feels like a short story on purpose, and that was, I think, my first like really prideful moment with having written a story. What authors have inspired your writing the most? Neil Gaiman, George R.R. Martin, Terry Pratchett. I haven't read a lot of Stephen King, but what I have read has been a major influence on me. And then on the comic book side, guys like Alan Moore, Jeff Loeb, The Long Halloween in particular is a strong influence on me. And Frank Miller, to a degree. I don't write anything like him necessarily. I don't use the sort of flow that he does, but the raw sort of energy of his writing, Sin City, Dark Knight Returns, 300, these are raw stories, and that's an element that I try to bring to mine. So yeah. Do you schedule your writing sessions or just write when you find the time? Yes. Do you use a computer, typewriter, write by hand, etc.? How do you write? A combination of everything. I have an iPad that I really started out on, which I rarely use anymore, but I always keep with me just in case. I have a laptop at home. I have various notebooks and notepads. I have index cards, so I tend to mix it up. If I sit at a computer and I find that I can't write, I pick up a notebook or a notepad and write by hand. Sometimes that will just the change in how you're writing will jog something loose. What are you most looking forward to now that you are a part of Authortube? The community. Consistently across the major Authortube channels that I follow and have researched, the community is number one, man. It's all about the followers, the subscribers rather, the comment section, and the channels that have a Patreon, which mine will after I hit 100 subscribers. That just the sense of community that comes with the Patreon, in combination with YouTube. I'm really into that. Now, my author platform stretches across various different elements, including YouTube, but also the podcast, Tumblr. I have a blog on my website. I have an Instagram. Instagram, I update almost daily, if not daily. The sense of community and all these things is what I'm most excited about. Not just because these are the folks that will hopefully buy my novel when it's done, but more importantly because I have seen already that the Authortube community is incredibly generous, humble, just, I know I said generous, but giving. They're very giving. The ones that I've run into have been incredibly helpful. You know, everybody just wants to help. Everybody's just here to sort of lift you up, you know. And so the more my channel grows, the more I intend to do with the community, and You know, when I hit 100 subscribers, for example, I'll do my first live stream on my channel. I know some other AuthorTubers have expressed desire to do live streams with me. Those will probably happen before I get to the 100 subscribers on my channel. But a lot sort of is going to launch when I hit those 100 subscribers. The Patreon will launch, the live streams will begin. So I will be involved with the community as much as I can. Okay, Authortube, that was fun. Very briefly, I want to touch on the short story that I'm writing. There is a contest going on with Authortuber Broken Pages and a couple other guys. I'll have all their information down below in the description. They're doing a short story contest, and I'm writing a short story for it. The only guideline that they provided was the word count. Can't be above a certain word count. Other than that, they said that I could write whatever I wanted for my entry. And at the same time, I was doing Neil Gaiman's masterclass, and his project on that masterclass is to rewrite a very well-known fairy tale, but to update it in some way, to alter it. I chose to rewrite the fairy tale of the Pied Piper. I am writing the Pied Piper set in modern day, but it has a very sort of supernatural, religious twist. That's all I'm gonna say for now. All right, everybody, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and leave a comment down below with what you would like to see out of this Authortuber. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell as well so you're notified every time I launch a new video. I publish videos on Wednesday nights, sometimes way into Wednesday nights, but Wednesday nights. And I will see you guys next week right here. Don't forget booksbyadrian.com.